We live in a time where masculinity is shamed and men don't know what it means to be a man. As a pastor and counselor, I've spent the better part of my life equipping and training others. My goal with this show is to translate my hard-earned experience into tools and tactics to help you become stronger as a man. This is the BraveCo podcast. I'm your host, Jason Vallotton. Hey, BraveCo men, I want to take a second real quick and tell you about our BraveCo conference coming up June 12th through the 14th here in Redding, California. This year's theme is Rise Up. Men, we are going to rise up in our families, in our businesses, in our relationships, in our relationship with God. That is what God's doing in our life. If you have not been to one of our conferences before, I would encourage you highly to seriously consider stopping what you're doing, investing in yourself, and coming out to our conference. We don't do it the normal way that conference is done. A lot of guys are like, man, I don't want to sit and listen to a boring conference. You're not going to. Our conferences are super dynamic. In fact, we put each man into a group of 50 men. You have a leader, you have co-leaders that you're running with, you have team colors, team competitions, team pride going on. There's things to win and people to compete against as well. A lot of the ministry is also done inside of your team, which is really cool because you get tons of personal ministry. You also get to minister with other men. The other piece that's really cool about the conference is we are doing a rite of passage for men 12 to 18 years old. Listen, this is so important because if you're a father, you don't want to be the only man pouring into your son. You have this opportunity to introduce your son into manhood with a ton of other men speaking into him, pouring into him, cheering him on. We have a 2.5 mile Tough Mudder course that your son will go through that is incredible. It's full of obstacles. He's going to love it. And he can come through to the conference with you this year. And then we have all kinds of other activations, incredible speakers. The other thing that I'm really excited about this year is every man is going to get a battle plan for his life. What is that? Well, that is a plan that you're building during the conference for the 5 main areas in your life: your finances, your relationships, your relationship with God, your physical health, and your personal self. So you're looking at the different areas of your life and you're going, I want to ensure that when I leave the conference, I have a plan for my life. Our conferences are not mountaintop experiences. It is a catalyst into building a stronger, more powerful, more competent life. You will also have the ability to jump into discipleship at the end of the conference. Again, we're not just throwing on good conferences for guys to feel good. We're actually helping men build stronger lives. So if you want to jump into discipleship and run with the men in your group afterwards, you'll have the opportunity to do that, especially if the other guys want to jump in too. So I want to invite you. Again, that's June 12th through the 14th. I hope to see you there. Welcome back to the BraveCo podcast, everyone. I am Jason Vallotton, and we are in the middle of our series, The Makings of a Man. And basically, we've been talking about what are the different attributes that makes up a man. And this week, I have my favorite guy on the whole entire planet, my dad here. Dad, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
Yeah. I love, this week we're going to talk about leadership. And I love to talk about leadership with you because it's one of your biggest strengths, and you've been the greatest example of a leader in my life. And so I'm really excited to talk about how leadership plays into the role of, being a man. It's one of the main attributes of being a man. But before we do that, I'm going to dive in and I'm going to read a story about Abraham Lincoln.
Got it.
I'm going to use my reading skills.
This is a bedtime story?
Yeah.
Close my eyes while you read it.
Yeah, do it. Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, is renowned for his leadership during the Civil War and his efforts to abolish slavery. Born in 1809 in a Kentucky log cabin, Lincoln rose from humble beginnings, educating himself through consistent reading. His early life of hard labor instilled a strong work ethic and deep humility. Lincoln's political career began in Illinois, where he served in the state legislature and the U.S. House of Representatives. He gained national recognition during the 1858 debates with Stephen A. Douglas, where his arguments against the expansion of slavery positioned him as a leading figure in the Republican Party. Elected president in 1860, Lincoln faced a national divide over slavery. His election prompted Southern states to secede, leading to a civil war in 1861. Lincoln navigated immense challenges, making tough military decisions and managing conflicting interests with his government. His focus remained on preserving the Union and ending slavery. A pivotal moment in Lincoln's leadership was the issuance of the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, declaring freedom for the slaves in Confederate-held territories. This shifted a war's moral purpose and bolstered the Union's cause. In November of 1863, Lincoln delivered the Gettysburg Address, a brief but powerful speech that reaffirmed the principles of equality and democracy, emphasizing the national unity of a government of the people, by the people, for the people. Lincoln's leadership qualities included empathy, humility, resolve, and effective communication. He empathized with others, sought advice from his cabinet, remained committed to his vision, and used his oratory skills to inspire the nation. Re-elected in 1864, Lincoln's second term was cut short by his assassination in April of 65, just days before the Confederacy's surrender. Despite his untimely death, Lincoln's legacies endured. He preserved the Union, paved the way for the abolition of slavery. Abolition of slavery, and set a standard for moral and effective leadership. His vision, resilience, and humanity continued to inspire leaders worldwide. Well, as you see, I have like a 6th grade reading level. So thanks everyone for sticking with me.
You did good. You know that I memorized the Emancipation Proclamation.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. In the 8th grade, I had to memorize it to pass. That's how bad my grades were.
No way.
Our, 407 years ago, our fathers brought forth this nation new, and I used to know the whole thing. I probably could do it again if I studied for an hour.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Only thing I ever did in school that I was proud of.
Lincoln was such a great leader.
Yeah, he was.
He was one of our greatest leaders.
Yes,
and he accomplished so much, in his short time on earth.
Yeah,
and fighting for what he believed in, being willing to stand up for what he believed in, and taking a lot of criticism for what he believed in.
Yeah,
and
he had
even
2 nervous breakdowns. Grew up in a very humble. Very humble beginnings. Didn't have a good father. It was tough upbringing.
Yeah. Didn't Abraham Lincoln grow a beard because his face was so ugly?
He met someone when I think he was running for Senate, and a 10-year-old little girl said, "Mr. Lincoln, when he was meeting people, greeting people in his campaign." And this 10-year-old little girl said, "Mr. Lincoln, your face is so ugly. You should grow a beard and cover it up." And he did. I don't know if it's if that's a true story, but it's a common story.
Yeah.
And he evidently grew a beard and covered up. He had a condition in which his bones had knots on them.
Oh,
so it made his face look distorted. So yeah. But he was a lawyer. He was very smart. I think he only had like a 6th grade education in the beginning, but very smart man.
Yeah, incredible. I think leadership is, of course, one of the greatest qualities, one of the most important qualities as a human being, but especially as a man.
Yeah.
Because we are called to lead, right?
Yeah.
And but when we think about leadership, Dad, what are the qualities that make up a good leader? If we're talking about, being a man who can lead.
Well, I would begin with trust, because, if you don't have trust, You actually don't have, I mean, all relationships are built on trust.
Yeah.
And once you break trust, no one's going to follow you. And then, then the question, as you know, is like, well, how do you create trust? And I would say, if I was going to say it in one term, in one, in one phrase, I'd say, under promise and over perform.
Yeah.
And as you know, because you do a lot of marriage counseling and you run our transformation center, one of the toughest things to do is when you've broken trust is to restore it.
It's true.
And when, like, a husband and wife, if a husband has, for example, cheated on his wife, the restoration process of forgiveness is usually not that hard. But what happens? But how do I restore trust? Like, how do I know when my husband's a half an hour late coming home that he's not with someone else?
Yep.
Or when I get that phone call and the person hangs up, how do I know that's not another woman? So, I think, like, being who you say you're going to be, and Proverbs says this: a man swears to his own hurt and does not change. So I think that this is like the crucial part of leadership. If you say you're going to be there at 3, you're there at 3. If you say you're going to pay that bill, you pay it. If you say you're going to, whatever, it's like that. Your word is your bond.
Yeah. You can't be a great leader without having trust.
You can't. And it's really hard to restore trust once it's broken.
I think it's also true, though, you can be trustworthy, but also not be a great leader.
Yeah, that's true. I think that, but you can't be a great leader and not be trustworthy.
Right. So
I think that, people, you have to have favor with God and man. And if you don't have trust and you don't keep your word, and, my grandfather hated signing contracts. Now, this is a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
But he said, my word's my bond. And my grandfather worked really hard to keep his word. And nowadays, I would say that there's a flippant kind of, well, I'll be there, and then you don't show up, or I'll be there at 3. And the biggest thing isn't that, maybe it's not a big deal that you're there at 3, but what is a big deal is that you're there when you say you're going to be there.
Yeah.
And that you do what you say you're going to do, and you're the person you say you're going to be. And so you're not a poser. You're not an imposter,
Yeah. Let's say that 2 guys have equal trust.
Mm-hmm.
What makes one stand out better as a leader as opposed to, one who's
I think great leaders have a vision.
Mm.
And, I think it's vision that gives pain a purpose. So I think that, if the difference between maybe a good person and a good leader and a great leader is that a great leader has a vision that inspires people to sacrifice for it. Because I would say the greater the sacrifice, the clearer the vision needs to be. And I think that great leaders know, I like to say it this way, they know how to get people pregnant with a vision. They know how to impregnate people with a vision. And they're easy to follow because they're actually going somewhere.
Mm.
And there's clarity about their purpose, and they're not wandering the desert, trying to figure out where they're going. They have a deep sense of where they're going.
Do you think some people are born with vision, and like some people are better at finding vision and some people aren't? Like, is it a personality trait or is it a skill set? Like I could think of a couple people who are real visionaries, you being one of them. Someone like Sean Foyt, he's a great visionary.
Yeah, Sean's a great visionary.
I would say, gosh, who else? Lou Engel's, incredible
great visionary.
Yeah.
I think that, well, let's say this, you're always going to get better at your skills. So if you're an athlete, you're not born playing basketball.
Right.
If you're an athlete, you're not born playing golf or baseball or football. So it's like you might be an athlete in that you have the natural tendencies, the athleticism, the reflex reaction, the flexibility, whatever it is, the speed.
Yeah.
But you still have to actually learn the skill of playing basketball.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think that there are some things that, that I think there are people that have learned how to develop vision who it's not in their, they're not future present kind of people.
Yep.
They're not people who are thinking about the future, but they've developed the skill of it. I think there are other people that it's kind of in their nature to be, can I say, prophetic in that they're always looking like, where are we going?
Right.
So I think it can be developed, and I think even if you have it, you still have to develop it.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is that I think's important is that there are people who are visionaries, but they're not good communicators.
Right. Yeah.
And
learning how to communicate a vision is a craft.
I would say, there's so many examples of he who tells the best story actually rules the world.
It's true.
And in fact, we're starting this. We're going to in our college. We're going to actually have a course on storytelling because
Bethel College.
Yeah, on Bethel College, because storytelling you can use it everywhere.
Yeah.
Like from raising your children to leading your business or the place that you work, your employees, and helping your friends. Like storytelling is one of the ways that in my example is like one of the ways I get people pregnant. One of the ways that they are like, I am in labor for something powerful.
Yeah.
So I think there are people that are visionaries. So I'd say there's like in our articulation here is kind of like there's people who aren't visionaries. They can learn the skill of vision. They may not be like, metaphorically speaking, they're not going to play in the NBA. They're not going to play in the NFL, but they can actually improve their skills.
Yeah.
And there are people who are born visionaries, but they need to develop the skill of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are people that are born visionaries that have the skill, but maybe they're not articulate.
Yeah.
Like in actually inspiring other people towards a vision.
Yeah.
They themselves are after something, but they're not great and inspire others.
They're like Moses and Aaron.
Yeah.
Moses is like, we gotta talk to Pharaoh and free these people.
Yeah.
But I'm not a great talker.
Yeah.
I need Aaron.
And Aaron, Aaron. Unfortunately, wherever Aaron's going, he inspires a bunch of people, whether it's following Moses or following a golden calf.
Yeah, it's true.
But he's definitely articulate.
Yeah. Just like real short, because we don't have to spend forever on this one attribute, but how does somebody start to build the vision in their life? Because I talk to a lot of guys, a lot.
Yeah.
And I would say this is probably the top 3 area that they struggle at. Like that a lot of men struggle at. I don't know how to like build vision out and know how to find what I'm aiming at, that type of deal. Do you have just a couple like pro tips for that?
Yeah. I mean, too, when you're around visionaries, it's easier to learn the skill of vision.
Yeah.
So hanging around people, like we have a close friend, Michael Clifford. That guy's like a visionary.
Oh,
right?
yeah, he is.
I mean, he's got like a new idea like every other week,
Yeah.
And he's good for us. He's catalytic to us. And then secondly, I think exposing yourself to things that you have a passion for, exposing yourself to it, or things that other people have a passion for that you like. If you don't have a passion, how do you find passion? It's like, well, help your friends who are passionate about something, and you'll likely get passionate about it along the way. And then I think that the third thing, which may be the most important, is actually, we say spend time with the Lord, but I mean, spend the time with the Lord, like asking questions like, Lord, I'm supposed to have a race to run and a fight to win.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't even know what race I'm supposed to run or what fight I'm supposed to win. And you said, love your enemies. And I'm supposed to have some enemies, and I'm not even doing anything anybody's worth resisting.
Yeah.
So, I got to learn how to pick a fight. Like what am I willing to fight for? What am I willing to die for? Obviously for Jesus, but is there a specific purpose in it? And what race am I running? And I think that because we have a race to run and a fight to win, and maybe we even have a damsel to rescue, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, who is that, and where are they, and what race am I in, and who am I supposed to fight? And I think a lot of us, we spend a lot of energy fighting other people's fight. Like people draw us in a fight. Social media is the greatest example of the stupidest fights in the world.
Yeah.
Like people are attacking me about things that I have no passion to fight that fight.
Yeah.
And, I love what Winston Churchill said, because Winston Churchill's a fantastic leader during wartime. And he said, if you stop to throw rocks at every dog who barks, you'll never get to your destiny.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a lot of men, Jay, that they are so distracted. They're throwing rocks at this enemy and throwing rocks at that enemy. They're defending themselves against all these barking dogs. And it's like, it's a waste of time. Like interacting with people against you on social media, or interacting with, people that, don't like you. It's like, that's not your fight. Like, what fight are you in? Like, what are you called to do? What are you called to accomplish? When you die and you stand before the great white throne of judgment, the Lord going to say, "Well done, good and faithful servant," meaning I served somewhere. I did something worth doing.
Yeah.
And the New Testament is full of the story of the talents, which is the guy was a servant who was faithful with money. The story of the Midas, faithful servant. The story of the sower and seed, faithful servants. Like there's a place there's seeds to sow, farms to farm, fights to fight, wars to win. It's like I'm called to actually create forward motion someplace in which the devil has occupation, and I've come to destroy the works of the devil. So if I've never resisted, Jay, I don't know if Bill coined this phrase, but I heard it from him first. And he said, if you don't run into a devil once in a while, you might be going the same way. And some people live in so much peace, and they're like, I live in the peace of God. And I'm like, no, you live in the passivity of life in which you're not worth resisting. And then sometimes guys feel like there's something wrong because they're being resisted. I'm like, you're finally doing something worth resisting.
Yeah.
And the demonic realm knows your plight better than you do. I was thinking yesterday, I actually told the story, I think it was on podcast or something, but we both love the story of Gideon.
Yep.
And, Gideon's supposed to go down and he's supposed to free the Israelites from the Midianites. And he's terrified because he's got 300 men and their armies are described as the sands of the sea, the numbered like the sands of the sea. And so God finally says to him, are you scared? He's like, scared? No, I'm terrified. And God goes, well, go down to the enemy's camp, sneak down in there and see what they're saying about you. And he sneaks down in there, and one enemy soldier is saying to the other enemy soldiers, just as he gets there, obviously divine opportunity. Last night I had a bad dream. The guy's like, what was the dream? He said, well, I saw this barley loaf rolling over all our tents. And the other guy goes, oh, that's none other than Gideon. He's been anointed to kill us. And it's like, it says to us, like, the enemy knows your destiny better than you do.
Yeah.
And he actually resists you at your point of purpose. I'd like to say that, like, the enemy resists us at our point of purpose.
Sure.
So if you have no resistance and your life is kind of row your boat gently down the stream, which is kind of every man's dream, right? It's like, I just want to live a life of comfort. It's like, no, you actually don't, because a life of comfort is a life off the path, off the race you're supposed to run, and out of the ring you're supposed to win.
Yeah.
And so, I think it is a compliment to be resisted, and we're more than conquerors. So we're actually built for battle, and we're called the light of the world. So we're built for darkness. And our feet are, we're created with our feet facing forward, our eyes facing forward. We have no eyes in the back of our head. This is all divinely planned. Our ears are designed to hear forward. Our arms are designed to only move forward. And my point is like, we weren't even built for retreat.
Yeah.
Like our actual physical body is a sign that we were actually born to only move forward.
Yeah. No, it's true. I think when I look at leadership and even vision, there's two key components that I think are a must for leadership. Of course, we've talked about vision and we've talked about trust. I think that you have to have courage.
You have to have courage.
And you have to have grit, because the level in which you lead is often dictated by those two things: the courage that you have, right? The battle that you're willing to face, and the adversity that you're willing to stand in. To me, it's those two things, right? Like, I often think that what shuts down people's vision is their courage to face the fear of what it will take to get there, and their inability to withstand the pain, the tests, the trials that it takes, the risk
Yep.
You know, you can't be a good leader without risking.
No.
Everything is risky, even if you think, you know, marriage and relationships. And but I really do. I think that courage, it's like vision can activate courage, but often courage activates vision as well in our lives. And so I really think that for a lot of men, courage is something, I think twofold. Courage is something that can be imparted. You can encourage somebody.
Yeah.
I can give you courage. You know, that's part of what God was doing with Gideon when he said, go and listen to what they're saying about you. But I also think that courage is developed through, you see David goes and he fights the lion and he fights the bear. And obviously it took some courage to do those, but that gave him the courage to then, and the confidence to fight Goliath and to take that on.
It's a growing thing.
It's a growing thing. Yeah. And the more challenges that you face when you're younger, I think that's part of a main part of a dad's job is to actually build confidence, but courage in their sons, right? So I've done these little things. I've done it with dad. I've watched my dad do these things. I'm inspired. That's why I think men need heroes. I looked and I've seen what my dad can do. I've seen what, you know, Keith Alvord can do. That was one guy that I looked up to when I was a firefighter. I'm watching what he does. And although I'm scared, I'm willing to press in because I'm one of the men, right? And this is what I'm going to do. If you haven't been raised in an environment of courageous men and courageous women even, then you see yourself through your own eyes instead of through their eyes. And you see yourself as if, man, I haven't really accomplished anything. I haven't really done much. I don't know that I can do that. And it really limits. It's like it's like a governor on your vision, on your leadership lid, because I don't really know what I'm made of. I don't have any stories which should tell me otherwise. There's a guy named Alex Hormozy. He doesn't have great character, not a great Christian. He's a great businessman. And he says, you can only stand in a mirror for so long and say declarations and declare that I'm this person and I'm that person, I'm this person. Before you don't believe yourself, you have to actually get out and do at some point. And we love declarations.
Yeah.
But I also love the other side of, you have to be able to put the rubber where the road is, put your money where your mouth is, and be able to withstand, to be able to stand up. And that's something that I think every guy needs to grow in and even check and say, and see, how much courage is my courage keeping me from being a great leader? It's my lack of courage. Is my lack of grit keeping me from being a great leader? Am I struggling in my marriage? Am I struggling leading my kids? Am I struggling in my businesses? Am I struggling leading myself because of my lack of courage or my lack of grit? I think those two things are huge.
Yeah. It's, I like what you said about we have to have heroes. A simple example is like if you go skydiving, and you've never done it before, you want to watch someone else jump out that plane before you. And then when someone else jumps out of that plane and you see them, they landed okay, then, it becomes like you're following the hero out, so to speak. You're like, okay, if he could do it, I can do it.
Well, and you get strapped onto a person.
That's
right?
the first time, right?
Yeah, you're teamed up. So you're doing it with him. Yeah. It's Jesus' model of discipleship, right? With the disciples, he calls them and he says, come follow me. And they watch him do a bunch of miracles. Yeah. And then he sends them out. You guys go do some miracles. And then I'm going to leave you guys, they do it with him. And then he leaves them by themselves.
They watch him do it. Then he watches them do it. Then they do it by themselves. And I think this is part of the reason why we need heroes. It's why you read the Abraham Lincoln story. Yeah. It's like, it's why we like movies, I think men they're captivated by movies like Braveheart and Gladiator, because we all need a hero to follow. Yeah. And we need somebody who, who's already killed the lion and the bear. And I think part of the challenge that we have too is, we get in these places of like men's summits and these places where, men are killing Goliaths, but we've never killed the lion or the bear. Yeah. We haven't had a private victory, and now we're trying to have a public one. Yeah. So I think it's really important to realize, like, some of the things that we're talking about that are giants in our life would be a midget in someone else's life.
Yeah.
Because when you start, you're killing, you're swatting mosquitoes, and you're doing things that other people aren't afraid of, but you're afraid of. And I think you have to progress in your courage. And the other thing I want to say about courage before we move on is, I am convinced that people think that courage means that I don't feel afraid.
It's the opposite.
And it's completely the opposite. Your sister is leading a school as a principal and superintendent, and I watched her lead through COVID, which trying to lead an elementary school that
in California,
K through 8th grade in California, and I watched her through tears push forward.
Yeah.
I watched her through sleepless nights push forward. I was with her on late night calls, like, just reassuring her that it's going to be okay. As parents are angry with you, the government's upset with you, and the teachers are upset with you, and you can't make anybody happy. And your sister Shannon is wired for peace. She's wired like your mom, but she became a great leader because she was forced in a situation where she had to come up with grit.
Yeah.
And in my mind, grit is what happens when you are afraid, but you move forward.
Yeah.
Like, that is a grit factory. And I think that it's one of the things that I've learned, but I don't love it. I don't love to be afraid and have to move forward.
No.
I don't love the feeling of anxiety.
Me neither.
I don't love it thinking about somebody that I have to be in their office, maybe my boss or my coworker or my enemy or my whatever. And, we're going to have a hard conversation and my stomach's in knots, and I'm, waking up at 4:00 in the morning thinking about, we're going to have this conversation tomorrow. But I actually have to tell the truth. And that, all of those things, what's courageous is that I do it.
Yeah.
And I do it enough, it becomes easier and easier.
Yeah, it's real. I think the only way to not fight a giant in your life is to let passivity lead you, because every life is sprinkled with enough giants that our life was designed to make us strong, And I was thinking about a second ago when you were talking about grit, that it seems to me that grit's developed one of two ways. In the first one is I'm either led by fear or I fuel myself with like faith. And in either one works, right? Like, I'm so afraid of not having enough money.
You're failing.
Or like, I'm trying to please my dad, and so I never quit. I just keep going.
Yeah.
Or I have so much vision in who God's called me to be, or so much faith in what He's doing, or fueling yourself with vision that I'm willing to withstand. And either one works. The faith and the vision and the hope is
more fun.
So much better. Yeah. I'll say hope is a massive component to grit. And we see that in the study with rats, right? Do you remember that?
They put them in buckets of recycling.
Yeah. There's this rat experiment.
Yeah. And they put them in there and they were able to swim for 15 minutes without drowning before they drowned. And then they took them out, dried them off, gave them a rest, then put them back in there.
He had swam for 64 hours or something. Yeah. It's called the rat with hope, if you guys want to look it up.
What's it called?
The rat with hope.
Yeah.
And so basically the scientist concluded when he was all done, like, the rats who got saved were then able to swim days longer than they were just days earlier, because they said somehow, some way, if I just keep going, I'll be saved. And in our life, like, man, I guess probably a massive component to being a great leader is hope.
Yeah. And I was going to say before you said that piece is that adversity is the mother of grit.
Oh yeah.
And I think that hope is actually the inspiration I need to get out of adversity, is that I actually do have hope.
It's the fuel.
Yeah,
It's the lasting power.
And everybody knows what it's like to have, hopefully a hopeless hour or a hopeless day. But, when those days start to build up and you have days piled up on top of one another, hopelessness, that's a tough season,
Yeah. Nothing feels better than like tons of hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. And hope's often something that we have to cultivate intentionally over and over and over again. And I found in my life that hope is something that you cultivate like a garden.
Yeah.
Sometimes it hits you. Sometimes you just feel hopeful. But people who live in hope, like Steve Backlund, it's a great example, probably one of the greatest hope carriers on the planet today.
He really is. It's one of his messages, his key message.
Yeah. He's one of those guys that has cultivated a life of hope. He's focused. It's not just that he focuses on what's good, but he spent his life developing that muscle that's now very big.
Yeah. Well, thankfulness and it is one of the keys to hope, that you stay thankful. And then, also testimonies, right? Yeah. Testimonies like what God's already done for me.
Yeah. Is massive. And those things inspire hope. And then also being around people that are, that are hopeful. I've said this at least 100 times in the last 2 years. Show me your friends, I'll show you your destiny. Like who you hang around with. And we've said it we've went around a little bit around the bush of this without saying it. But who you hang with matters so much. It does.
And, it's like that birds of a feather thing flock together. It is a deterrent when we're not doing well. And then misery loves company. These are all like little idioms that we say, but they're actually a culture.
Yeah.
And so when I'm doing bad, it feels good to be around other people who are doing bad, right? Because it kind of makes me feel like, well, everybody's doing bad. But that is exactly how to build an ecosystem of poverty and destruction and victimization. And what I actually need is to be around people who are doing good when I'm doing bad. And the first response to that is going to make me feel a little bit like guilty.
Yeah.
Because I want to feel like everybody's doing bad. But the side effect of being around people who are prospering or winning or pushing forward is that you either quit or you get in, you get drawn in by their momentum.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult. Like this is a part of grit to me. Like this is a really, like, what is grit? Well, practical part of grit is I choose to be around people who are good at what I'm bad at, who are in a good season when I'm in a bad season, who have a good attitude when I have a bad attitude, so that I can draft off their momentum. It's incredibly difficult to be around people who are doing amazing when you suck.
Yeah.
Incredibly difficult. It is so much easier to, go down to the bar and hang out with the guys who are doing nothing and reassuring yourself that you're good because everyone's broke.
Yep.
And I was talking to this one of the we just had this summit with we invited 40 kings, 40 CEOs, and when one guy was sharing, and he made this statement, he said, "I really loved COVID because COVID gave me a reason to be a failure, and everyone else was failing, and it was the first time in my life when my failure had my failure felt like it was okay." And then he said, "I realized that I have spent my life wanting to be around people who are failing because I feel like a failure."
Wow.
And God really convicted him and he said, "Yeah, I love that." He said, "I couldn't figure out why everyone else hated COVID, but I loved it." And he said, "It's because I failed most of my life. And now during COVID, everybody was failing. So I felt like it reassured me that I'm okay."
Yeah.
And then he said, "What a weird reassurance." And the Lord convicted him, like, you're reassuring yourself that you're a failure because everyone else is failing. And so, and I think that's such a great example of what happens when we hang out with losers.
Yeah.
We hang out with people who have given up. They don't get in the ring. They're running no race. and and they spend their life, and the greatest adventure they have is watching someone else, watching a movie where, and I love movies, but sometimes I think movies siphon off the real need we have for victory, because we watch it in virtual reality, feel the emotion of it in virtual reality, and don't even realize that it's not our victory. It's actually not even real.
Yeah.
Like William Wallace on that screen is not even real.
Nope.
But I'm experiencing the hero in me without actually having to be in a risk, because I'm entertained myself to death.
Yeah, it's true. It is. I think it leads us to a place where we go, okay, in order to be a leader, you have to take action.
Yeah.
There's no leadership role that doesn't include action.
Yeah.
And so, decisiveness, however you want to say it, the ability to make a decision and to move forward, like a good decision is better than a perfect decision late.
Yeah.
And that's realized talking to a friend yesterday. We went out to lunch and he said, I've realized that a fear of failure and my indecisiveness is part of what's governing me. Yeah. So, he's got a little bit of money, and the fear of risking that and losing it is both keeping him safe and small.
Yeah.
It's a poverty mindset, but I see it in, again, like if we look at the average everyday man, which I'm an average everyday man, right? So I'm thinking about my life. What areas do those look like? It looks like with my kids. It looks like with my wife. It looks like, instead of going, okay, what can I do today to better my life? What can I do today to grow my relationship with my kids? What can I do today to improve my marriage? I just go back into my comfort zone and my fear zone and just try to maintain the peace that I have, which isn't, it's a version of chaos, but it's better than failure in my mind. And that kind of living creates its own ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
But as a man, the ability to be decisive, the ability to take calculated risks, to get input from, and this is what I told my friend, like, listen, probably at first, don't try to make the decision on your own. You need a friend group. You need a friend group that has wisdom, that's going, hey, listen, this is actually a good deal. And, here's 3 ways that you could not risk all of your money, but move forward. And that's what my friends and you have done for me over the past 4 years, really, with BraveCo. Is like, there's a lot of areas that I want to delay and delay and delay. And then you start to realize, like, you can't, my delay is actually because I'm emotionally overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed and I don't know what to do. That's my indecisiveness. But when I become really decisive is when I start to go, when I give myself a deadline, I have to make a decision by the end of today. And okay, what's holding me up? I'm actually looking for more information. A lot of times I need more information about this piece. I need more information about, and then there comes a place where I have all the information. Now I have to do what God told Job. Stand up like a man, brace yourself like a man, Job. I'm about to give you some information that you're going to need to stay strong with.
What I notice is that cowards will never have enough information to make them to make them courageous.
Yeah.
And fear in our own lives, you'll never have enough information to make you fearless.
Yeah.
So, sometimes, we are actually, we're almost mummified by and paralyzed by how much information we and you can get information so easy. And the challenge is that, you build a great battle plan, as has been repeated over and over so famously. And then, after you shoot the first shot, the battle plan's needs to be adjusted. So
yeah, it's true.
I think that my style is really, I like to fail small first. So it's like, ready, shoot, aim. And I think that's, people actually jokingly say that about me all the time. It's like ready, shoot, aim. But I think that you shoot, you see how you miss the target, and you adjust the scope, so to speak, and you keep adjusting until you got it. And I think that life is like that. It's like, if you want to make a $1 million investment, you might start with $1,000 investment, and it's like, okay, well, try that. See
Yeah.
See how we do with it. So, I think as I've gotten older, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to. I like when I was young, like there was an adrenaline of risking it all, but now I have like I don't want to risk it all. I want to, as you point out,
be a good
calculate
steward.
risk.
Yeah.
And I think it's important though. Risk is really important. Moving forward in areas is really important. And then you will fail at first, which is good, because you learn more from your failures and you do your successes, and then you make adjustments. And you're like, okay, that didn't work. What do I have to do to make that work? And I think that it's just part of being a man. And this seems like a different subject, but I see it as this subject played out, personified in a culture of, men who don't date anymore.
Sure.
Our school and our church are full of beautiful women in their 30s who've never been on a date. Not because they don't want to go, but because no one's ever asked them.
Or never been in a serious relationship.
Never been in a serious relationship. Never been on a date. Never, and it's like, I've got 4 or 5 girls that assist me every day, like work for me, and they're all single. And I'm like, and they're, most of them are in their 30s. They all want to be married.
Yeah.
And like, I was just having a conversation yesterday with some guys, and I was like, when I was in the 6th grade, I had a girlfriend. Like, it was puppy love, of course, but I mean, it was the culture. I never to the day I dated your mom, like I had a girlfriend from 6th grade on. From the time I had a sex drive, I had a girlfriend. Like that was the culture.
Yeah.
And I meet men every day of my life who are in their 30s and have never been on a date. They've never been on a date, or they've been on 2 or 3 dates, and it's like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is it? What is it about this culture that like doesn't want to take a risk? Like doesn't want to, well, I don't want to be rejected. It's like, this is man up. So, when we're talking about life as a father, I mean, you got to get married first, you got to, and I think that we live right now in to be honest, I've thought about it for years. Like, I don't understand the culture we have. And I often talk to young people, guys, I'll be like, hey, have you dated anybody? You've been in school ministry for a year. No, I can't find anybody. You can't find anybody. There's got to be 1,000 single women in our school ministry who love God and who are beautiful. Like
it's John Eldridge's quote, masculinity is not something a man's born with.
Yeah.
It's something that's poured into him from other men. This
Totally.
is the byproduct of not having strong, powerful role models, leaders, mentors, brothers that are coming around other men and going, no, you can do it from a young age. Is if you don't get shown and you don't see, then, you're like the Israelites who you think that you're a grasshopper. You think that you're small. You think you're stuck in
Numbers 11.
Yeah. Exactly. You're stuck in this mentality that you don't have what it takes. And it's a very tough place to be. But I do think what we were talking about a second ago about taking risk and trying, there was a study that, that was done. There's a whole group of people, they split them in half. They gave they gave each person some clay, and they had 30 days to build a perfect pot of pottery, right? To throw the perfect pot.
Yeah.
But they could only do one. And then to another group, they had to make a pot every single day with their clay. And at the end of 30 days, the people that made a pot every single day had better pots than the person who had one pot that had to make that one pot perfect, who worked on it for 30 days.
Yeah.
And it goes back to, you can focus on one thing for a really long time and only take one risk, or you can take a risk every single day. And as you go, you learn from your mistakes, right?
Totally.
You're going like, oh shoot, I almost had it. And then I did this. Oh, I made it too thin. Oh, it was too thick. It cracked when I fired it. Oh, and I think that's our life. I was talking to my partners in BraveCo, and we're just in a crazy time. We got our conference coming and the gala's coming and, a fundraising deal. And we have this big vision ahead of us to get 1,000 churches and 1 million men in discipleship. And we were talking and my friend was like, man, it's just hard because we tried this thing and it didn't work. And we tried this thing and it didn't work. Tried this thing and it didn't work. And I'm like, I know. We're getting better. There's just, unless you're building an IKEA piece of furniture, right? God gives you a tree. He doesn't give you furniture. He gives you a tree and he says, you're a builder. Try and fail until you get it. And that's us, right? That's life. I only say that because that's what everyone has to do. That's what you had to do. Totally. It's what I have to do. It's what we're all still doing, man, is we're all showing up and growing in the area that we've been called to build. We're going to close this down pretty soon, but I want guys to do this. I want you to look at the main areas in your life. So you're looking at your finances. You're looking at your business or wealth. You're looking at your physical health. You're looking at your relationships, including your relationship with God. And I want you to sit down and go, what do I want to be said about me? Or what do I want to be able to say about myself in these areas? So with your relationship with your wife, what do I want to be able to say about my marriage?
Totally.
I want to be able to say that I can clearly, confidently communicate with my wife, connect emotionally, that our sex life is great, that she respects me, that we're friends. Okay, great. That's vision. That right there is vision.
Totally.
It's not massive vision, but it's good. It's good enough, right? What do you want to be able to say about prosperity and wealth in my life? I want to be able to say that I'm free of debt, that I have enough money to, to support charity, that I'm generous.
Take care of my family.
I can take care of my family. That's vision, right? Now you have to start asking yourself, what do I have to do to get there? I've got $20,000 of credit card debt. Okay, great. How can I bring in more money, right? Or my marriage is actually suffering right now. Well, I want to have a great marriage. Why is it suffering? Because I have low conflict resolution skills and I'm blowing up my marriage. Okay, great. If you start to go through, guys, this to me is your homework. We try to leave guys with an activation plan. This is your homework. Go through the main areas of your life, right? Your finances, your business, your relationships, your personal health, your spiritual health, and go, what do I want to be able to say about this area? Just make it really simple. And then back up, where am I at today? And how do I close that gap? You may have to bring a friend in because you go, I don't know how to close the gap. I know where I want to be and I know where I'm at, but I don't have any great ideas. No problem.
Totally.
That's where a great attribute of a leader is humility. A leader doesn't know all the answers. They know how to get the answers.
Yeah.
And that's an important piece. Dad, do you want to add anything?
No, I mean, just as we close, I just want to encourage people. It's, day by day, one foot in front of the other. Sometimes when we feel bad about where we're at, sometimes the mountain looks so big and the journey looks so long and the giant looks so overwhelmingly huge. And, this saying really, stuck in my mind years ago when someone said, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And I think that, when you get inspired like this and then you go home to the giant, you're like, crap, what do I do? It's like, move forward.
Yeah.
And I'll say in my life and in yours, like there are days when I inch forward, like literally I gained an inch. Or on some days I'm like, I was in a storm and I didn't back up.
Yep.
And then there are other days where, it feels like we went 3 miles.
Yep.
And I just want to inspire people, like take your vision and break it down into like daily steps. And, if you're really new at it, break it down into hourly steps when you're awake and just do it.
Yeah.
And just do it. And I think that, if you look at this big thing, I want to have a great marriage, but my marriage sucks right now. It's like, okay, well, start somewhere.
Yep.
Just start somewhere. And, if you're going nowhere, you'll get there soon.
Yeah.
But start somewhere and challenge yourself that keep track of it so that you can see that you're building.
Yep.
And it's maybe a kind word today. It's maybe something that you've been carrying unforgiveness for, and it's like,
yep.
and you're like, I want to do this amazing thing, but there's all this crap in my closet. It's like, all right, before I can build something, I have to like get this stuff out of my foundation. So,
yep.
It's like, just take it a piece at a time. And I think financially the same thing. If I owe $50,000 and I owe 10 credit cards, and it's like, all right, take the least expensive credit card. Maybe I got one that has $500 on it. It's like, I'm going to pay this one off. I'm not going to try to pay off my $30,000 credit card. I'm going to pay one credit card off.
Yep.
And it's like, I'm chipping away at it, and I'm making, and momentum, as Maxwell says, like momentum is like a miracle. Like when you get momentum,
it's true. Everything changes.
It's kind of like when you get your car rolling, like getting your car going takes 3 times the amount of energy as to keep it going. So it's like, if you can pay off the least expensive credit card, you can say you're sorry for something that you did that you're wrong about. It's like, okay, you can one small act. It's like, yes, that marriage is a $50,000 problem, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah.
And I put $100 towards it this week, but I'm going to get there.
Yep.
But what happens for all of us is, I want to clean the garage, and I open the door and I'm like, I don't even know where to start. Like I just keep throwing things in here for 3 years and slamming the door. And
yep.
Now I open the door and things fall out. It's like, where do I start? It's like somewhere. Just pick a corner and start.
Yep.
And the hardest thing to do when you're stuck is freaking get started.
It's true.
And I just want to inspire you. Like, just do one thing every day. Like, it doesn't have to be amazing. It just needs to be something that is going to move you forward.
Yeah.
And I 100% guarantee you that if you will do one small thing for 40 days, maybe take on the hardest area, just do one thing.
Yeah.
By the time you get to about the 26th or 7th day, there's something that happens to you. And I know this because I've done it. Like, I had to do this in COVID. And you get momentum, and you wake up, and there's something happens in you that you don't even realize is happening. And you're kind of like, oh, I did this yesterday, I did it the day before, I did it the day before, I did it before. And I wake up, and there at some point in my journey, in that 40-day journey, I wake up and I realize, I wasn't afraid today. Like, wow, this is the first day.
Yeah.
I did something towards my marriage without anxiety. 26 days of anxiety. And today I did it without anxiety.
Yeah.
It's like, you kind of wake up going, oh, something is changing.
Yeah.
And, and it might take you 2 years to fix that marriage. It might take you 3 years to fix, it took me 3 years to fix our financial problem when we went broke and owed $1.8 million. It was 127 suppliers. It was people calling every day. And then, I just wrote them all down on a piece of paper. These are all the people I owe. And I called every single one of them. It took me 2 months just to call them, because I called 3 a day. Always try to call one hard one and 2 easy ones. And like, this is my situation. Here's where every time I get any money, I'm putting it towards you, and just, keeping in touch with the people I owed money to. And, it was 3 long, hard years to get everyone paid off.
Yeah.
But we did it. But it just starts a few dollars at a time. When we get an extra $50, like I'd get an offering, I'm like, okay, let's pay that credit card down $50.
Yep.
My biggest point right now is do something.
Yep.
Pretty much anything.
Yeah.
As long as it's moving it forward.
Yeah. It's the 1% rule, right?
Yep.
So 1%, in compounding interest, like with your life, if you do 1% for a year, that's a lot. That's a lot. If you do 1% for a lifetime, that's a lot. If you would have started on your marriage 10 years ago, working 1%, just every month, I'm going to get 1% better.
Yeah.
It really adds up. And I think leadership finally is ownership. It's taking ownership of your life.
It is.
And making sure that you're doing something to be a steward, to grow, giving God something that he can bless, giving God something that he can get behind and push on and help add his strength to your strength. But you have to put your part in, because God doesn't do things for you.
No.
He does things with you. And so, Dad, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. And just bless everybody who's listening, because I feel like this is a new era. It's the beginning of a whole new era for us.
It really is. All right, man. Stay brave out there. Do your activation. Oh, and by the way, we have our BraveCo conference coming June 12th through the 14th, and we want to see everyone there. So hopefully we see you guys there, especially if you're local, show up. Otherwise, have a great week. We'll see you next week.
God bless.
Hey guys, thanks so much for listening to the BraveCo podcast. If you like this podcast, would you please rate it, review it, leave us a great comment. And if you like this episode in particular, share it with your friends and family. That helps us to spread the word. Guys, stay brave. We'll see you next week.